everybody, I'm the Unconventional Expositor, and it's my job to sit in a chair and talk about stuff. And today, we're taking a look back at Batman Arkham Asylum, often credited as the game that saved comic book games. Until recently, comic book games were considered to be what most video game movies are. Cheap, soulless cash grabs relying solely on brand recognition for money. Of course, not all were like this. Supposedly the Spider-Man 2 tie-in game was good, but most of them still sucked. Then, Batman Arkham Asylum appeared out of the shadows to prove us all wrong. Warner Bros. Interactive needed a developer to create a new Batman game. Initially, they had EA making a tie-in game for The Dark Knight, since pretty much every Batman movie from Batman 89 to Begins had at least one tie-in game. But after The Dark Knight's tie-in got cancelled, WBI needed a new studio, and they ended up choosing Rocksteady Studios to get the job done. Rocksteady had only developed one game at the time, Urban Chaos Riot Response, which was subject to average reviews, so WBI was taking a big gamble with Rocksteady. But against all odds, Arkham Asylum was released in 2009 to widespread acclaim. Many critics called it the best comic book game ever made, and while I'd say since then, there are other games that could have that title, we wouldn't have those if it weren't for Arkham Asylum. Also, it's indirectly responsible for the downfall of Reddit. This month marks the game's 15th anniversary, so I was thinking, let's see if Batman Arkham Asylum is as good as you remember. The game begins with Batman taking the Joker to Arkham Asylum, but things go haywire, and the Clown Prince of Crime escapes, along with several other villains from the Caped Crusaders Rogues Gallery. When I first played Asylum, I knew Joker was gonna escape, but the build-up is so well executed that it makes the first 10 minutes feel like 5. And there's no way to review an Arkham game without giving a shout out to the voice cast. Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, and Arlene Sorkin all returned from the animated series as Batman, Joker, and Harley Quinn respectively. The trio, to nobody's surprise, absolutely killed their roles, but the rest of the voice cast isn't far off at all. For me, there were two big draws of the game that kept me engaged. One was the gameplay, which has the Dark Knight taking out enemies in hand-to-hand combat and stealth segments, following trails to solve crimes, and solving all those damn riddles. The combat system, which is referred to as a free-flow system, has you punching enemies and countering their attacks. Later in the game, more types of enemies get introduced, like these guys with knives you gotta stun with your cape, or these electro-baton guys you gotta get behind to do damage. You can also use your gadgets to fight enemies, like hitting them with a batarang, or pulling them closer with a bat claw. In stealth sections, you need to grapple up to these conveniently placed gargoyles and take down enemies in different ways. You can sneak up behind enemies and take them down, hang from the bottom of a gargoyle and wait for an enemy to come too close, set a trap with explosive gel, use a bat claw to yank thugs down, or later in the game, use the ultra bat claw to bolt a wall down on your enemies. Batman doesn't kill, he just breaks all their bones and gives them permanent brain damage. Once you take out a good portion of the room's enemies, sometimes you'll see the remaining thugs act all terrified like they just saw this. The other big job was the atmosphere, which made the experience feel like a horror game. Asylum did something you don't see nowadays. It took advantage of its limitations. At the time, games didn't have these huge open worlds akin to more recent games like Minecraft, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, among others. Instead, you spend the game on this Alcatraz-inspired island in these isolated, claustrophobic rooms and halls. You never know when something will jump out at you! The game's visuals look like they were pulled straight out of a comic book. Arkham Island has this gothic architectural design that looks both beautiful and nightmarish. There isn't much to the user interface, so you can let those gorgeous visuals sink in. The sound design is excellent too, even if your punches sound like slapping someone with a fish. Once you take an enemy down, you can literally hear the bones crack, and I just love that sound when you solve all those freaking riddles. The soundtrack gives this ominous feeling that something isn't right, fitting for the game's tone. In some areas, the game is devoid of music, until all of a sudden you got dun 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 blasting in your ears. During the Scarecrow sections, the music oozes pure dread. I mean, who wouldn't feel that when they're being stalked by a straw bag? And how does the rest of the story go? Well, after the Joker escapes, we're introduced to the combat system. You punch enemies until they're knocked down, and you can either take them down while they're on the ground or wait for them to get back up. But if you do a ground takedown, you leave yourself open for an attack. When an enemy's about to hit you, you need to counter the attack or get out of the way to avoid taking damage. While Asylum's combat lacks the depth of its sequels in some recent comic book games, it's still a lot of fun with a good balance between risk and reward. Batman chases Joker down the halls, and after fighting some more of his henchmen, we're introduced to stealth. A guard strapped to an electric chair, and you gotta take out Victor's ass and rescue the guard. You know, nothing too difficult. Then we see, friendly reminder that this game was rated teen, the warden's been kidnapped by Harley Quinn, and in the next room, Batman rescues this guy, and not this guy. Shortly after, Batman catches up to Joker and shows that he kills, and you fight Reverse Titan, which are like if a WWE champion got exposed to radioactive waste. Throwing a batarang at them slows down time for a few seconds, allowing you to jump out of the way. After a minute, the Titan suddenly dies, and Batman's given another chance to not kill the Joker. Batman chats with the guard for a second before being interrupted by the Joker, who reveals that Commissioner Gordon's been captured by none other than Officer Balls. Now, we get to use detective mode, which is kind of like infrared vision. We find out that Balls, being the worst guard ever, got drunk, and now we gotta follow his breath trail. Ew, that sounds really gross. Until Batman runs into Harley again, who blows up an elevator in an effort to slow him down. But as we all know, that's not gonna work, because I'm Batman! Now we're introduced to the Chronicles of Arkham, cryptic symbols that when scanned tell you the story of the rise and fall of Amadeus Arkham, the founder of this asylum, how he became the very thing he swore to destroy after killing his family's murderer. It's almost as if Amadeus Arkham is a cautionary tale of where Batman could end up if he broke his moral code. The later ones hint at the identity of the man who recorded these chronicles, who, spoiler alert, is revealed to be Warden Sharp. Then we encounter a new type of enemy, thugs with guns. And these guys ain't playing, because if they catch you, you can kiss a good portion of your health bye-bye. So we need to employ stealth tactics in order to take them down. We got a little tease of the stealth with Victor's, not repeating that joke. And the stealth is pretty solid. Not too easy, but not too hard either. Even if Joker hires the worst henchman in the world, like, how did they not notice me? The next section expands on the game's stealth system. Now, you're in a big room where you're being hunted by some slightly less stupid henchmen. Here, you'll learn how ridiculously overpowered detective mode is. Unlike in the sequels, you don't really have a reason to not use it in stealth sections. This does kind of take away from the atmosphere the game is going for, because it goes from this comic book come to life atmosphere to this looking like any generic stealth game. Then we learn that Joker's henchman killed Officer Balls for being a terrible guard, so karma. Batman gets a call from the Riddler, who never physically shows up, but constantly annoys you for not solving his riddles, which consists of finding these Riddler trophies hidden in nooks and crannies, or out in the open, solving riddles, most of which are references to other characters in Batman mythos, destroying these blabbermouths, and finding interview tapes that give you more insight to the asylum's patients, like how they came to be the way they are, or what crimes they've committed. And you need to scan some of the Chronicles of Arkham. As you get closer to solving all his riddles, he starts to panic as he realizes that you have more brain cells than him. Wait a minute, if Batman's collecting all those Riddler trophies, where's he storing them? Up his ass. One thing in Asylum that's absent in the other Arkham games is that upon solving certain riddles, you unlock bios for characters like Catwoman, the Penguin, Firefly, Two-Face, and others not present in Asylum, but show up in future entries. Upon exiting the intensive treatment building, we hear the best music in the game. Some thugs are beating up the Batmobile, which is located right here, remember this for later. And here, mostly out of my own stupidity, I got my first game over. In the Arkham games, whenever you get a game over, usually you'll see one of the villains saying, "Yeah, I killed the bat, you suck, get good." This is something you don't see in a lot of other games, and I think they're a pretty neat touch, because they motivate you to get back on your feet and show those villains who's boss. Once the thugs around the Batmobile are incapacitated and totally not dead, we unlock explosive gel, and this stuff is fun to use. He doesn't know I'm here? Boom! Oh, this will be fun. Boom! And we learn that despite being the jacked cop he is, Jim Gordon is also an active smoker. On the intercom, Joker mentions something about a party, and you can see some thugs building something on the northwest part of the island, which gradually becomes Joker's face as the game progresses. If you go into this building, you get forced into first person and see his dummy with a TV for a head, and Joker appears on screen.
Come in, sit down, take off your mask. Someone to talk to, share secrets with. Shall we start with the big one? Who is that behind the mask? Why do you feel the need to go out into the world and fight people like me?
I'm not gonna tell you. Because I'm Batman! The next mission has us going to medical. We gotta find a way to rescue Gordon, and on our way, rescue the asylum's doctors and crack the ribs of the world's worst henchmen. In the elevator on our way to Gordon, Batman inhales some of Scarecrow's fear gas, which is gas that makes a person who inhales it experience the in-universe equivalent to watching one of those cheap animated movie knockoffs. Once Batman gets out of the elevator, he suddenly has glowing eyes, and we see that he was too late to rescue Gordon, but we're in a Scarecrow nightmare, so thankfully, this isn't reality. Batman walks into the morgue, then walks out into the morgue again, and we see 3 body bags.
Father, you should have stood up to him, son. Like a man.
Really? I was like 8 at the time. I wasn't Bandmat yet.
Mom?
Help us, Bruce. Don't let us die.
You're already dead. Oh, it's a short bag! And with that, we get our first Scarecrow section. This game's design's pretty cool. His clothes reminds me of Freddy Krueger's, and that mask looks pretty menacing, even if it looks like a straw bag. In these sections, you gotta time each move right so you don't get caught. And while it's not super hard, these sections are quite unsettling with a semi-horror atmosphere. At the end, you blast Scarecrow with a bat signal and awaken in the real world. Since it turns out that Gordon is still alive, Batman goes after the Commissioner, but by the looks of him, someone of his physique shouldn't need help, regardless of age. After a stealth section, Batman incapacitates Harley Quinn and frees Jim, who suspects that something else is down there.
What a blabbermouth! Spoiling the surprise. creepy.
Well, to be fair, no one likes it when someone gives away the ending. In a room below, Batman and Gordon find a computer that wants to log in with Penny Young, one of the doctors Batman rescued earlier, and Bane looking as slender as Slender Man. Remotely, Joker injects Venom formula into Bane, buffing him up like he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so begins our first boss fight. Since its release, the bosses have been considered Batman Arkham Asylum's weakest aspect, and while they're not all as bad as some people say they are, I gotta agree, they're not great. You know the bar isn't very high when the Bane fight, which I consider to be pretty mediocre, to be the best boss. While I like the Scarecrow levels, and a couple later sections some might call bosses, those aren't really boss fights to me, and to me, the Titans are just mini bosses. In the Bane fight, he charges at you, and you fight him pretty much the exact same way you fought the Titan earlier. Once his health bar is down, he throws chunks of the wall at you, which you just dodge. A bunch of Joker's goons jump down, who you gotta take out. If you leave Bane alone for too long, he'll regain health, but this didn't happen to me this time. The boss fight's not too hard, it only took me 2 tries. It's not terrible, but it does feel weirdly placed, considering that you fight the weaker Titans later. Supposedly, Asylum was originally going to have one boss fight, that being the final boss, so I guess this explains a rather disappointing boss quality. And I think something needs saying. I don't like his version of Bane very much. He mostly just feels like a big, dumb, angry guy. Most versions of Bane have the brain and the brawn, making him a formidable foe to Batman, and a rather dim-witted Bane is hard to take seriously. Supposedly in Arkham Origins, he's more in line with a competent Bane, but I never played Origins, so I have nothing to say about Origins Bane. After the fight, the room starts to collapse, and Batman escapes out of a sewage drain, and Gordon makes it out to tell us that Harley escaped off-screen while we were fighting Bane. But Batman knows the collapsing room isn't going to keep Bane down for long. So remember what I said about the Batmobile earlier? Remember how it's right here? And Batman is right here. Bane bursts out of the wall, but the remote-controlled Batmobile runs into Bane and knocks him into the bay. How is this possible? Can the Batmobile fly? Gordon gets off the island on a boat, and Batman orders Oracle to look up Dr. Young, and sets off to a Batcave on the island.
A Batcave on Arkham Island?
I built it years ago. It's best to plan ahead for situations like this.
How'd you manage to keep this a secret?
It's me, remember?
Because I'm not Ben! Batman thinks that Dr. Young's been experimenting with Venom, which is the formula that makes Bane go from this to this, and that Joker wants his hands on it. Batman does the Kratos jump me muff Deadman's point and glides down to the Batcave. Oracle informs us that Young was experimenting on Arkham patients with a chemical other than Titan that has similar effects. But the formula itself is missing from the notes, and Batman suspects that Young is hiding it, so he sets off to make sure he finds it before Joker does. Funny story, when I was playing this game at a Halloween party, one of my friends was like, I don't trust Dr. Young. And to his credit, he wasn't totally wrong. Now, we unlock the Batclaw, which is used to grab and pull objects and enemies toward you. Batman gets out through the sewer system and learns from Oracle that Young had received multiple payments from one Jack White, aka the Joker, but she stopped the payments when she found out who Jack White was. At this point in the game, if you go to this specific door, you get a welcoming greeting from Killer Croc. After a platforming section, we enter Arkham Mansion to find Dr. Young's notes. We fight some armed henchmen in another stealth section, and rescue security guard Aaron Cash, who accompanied Young on her way to the mansion. Cash tells Batman where Young went, and the world's greatest detective makes his way to Young's office. Once he gets here, it turns out that the doctor found her notes before the Joker could. Batman follows Young's fingerprint trail to the library. The library. Batman follows Young's fingerprint trail to the library, saves these 2 hostages, finds the formula, and as any great detective would do, burns it. While Batman's on his way to rescue Young from Scarman, he gets another whiff of fear gas and experiences the night his parents died. For those of you not too keen on Batman lore, 8-year-old Bruce Wayne and his parents went to the cinemas to watch Batman and Robin for the 500th time, and his dad's like, that movie sucked! But his mom's like, he's just a kid, so don't be so serious. Since it was raining, the family wanted to take a shortcut home, straight through the fittingly named Crime Alley, where they were cornered by a mugger named Joe Chill, who shot everyone except for Bruce, because kids always have plot armor. Afterwards, the family butler and best character, Alfred Pennyworth, helped Bruce cope with what had happened. If you ever think our world's in a bad state, remember that we don't have a street literally called Crime Alley. But for real, the way Paul Dini wrote Batman's origin story into this game was absolute genius. It's a definition of show, don't tell, done right. Now, we begin the second Scarecrow platforming section. You need the Batclaw to pull down crates for cover, and you fight some skeleton Scarecrow bought from Spirit Halloween. After escaping that nightmare, Batman finds himself on top of the mansion in the clock tower. Since the way to Dr. Young's office is blocked, Batman thinks it's a great idea to cut down a giant bill that could absolutely kill anyone it lands on to open the gate. He makes his way to Young's office, where he finds the doctor being threatened by Cutman, who Batman easily incapacitates with a batarang. Young tells Batman that there's a Titan lab in the gardens, but as she opens this safe, a bomb goes off, Young dies, Batman is knocked out, and we see the inmates getting back at the horrible warden. Now we follow the warden's blood trail to... I'll be back with you in a moment. Can you hear me, Unconventional Expositor? I know you can.
You!
Yes, it is I, Edward Enigma, the real. Now we follow the warden's blood trail to the penitentiary, where the most insane inmates are kept, along with Poison Ivy, in a place called the Green Mile. But it's not even a mile long! As Batman is about to rescue Sharp, Harley frees Ivy, and Joker frees the lunatics in the penitentiary. Batman cuts Sharp free, who in return gives him a sequencer that helps us bypass security systems. I've already bypassed your lousy security system, now you gotta solve all my riddles. Riddle me this, Expositor. What can go through glass without breaking it?
Light?
What do 5-year-olds make, but never see?
A lot of noise.
What do you call an idiot in his bedroom dressed in blue and yellow making
Me.
What is love?
Batman, it's me, the Warden. You know me.
No, you're up there.
You can't leave me locked up in here.
Yes, I can. After that, Batman has a surprise run-in with Harley Quinn, and we get a hand-to-hand combat section. And after Batman casually annihilates the worst thugs on Earth, we save 2 guards from a booby-trapped room. Then, Batman chases Harley into this electric floor room. I don't exactly know what it's called. This is easily one of the most fun combat sections in the game, with henchmen coming at you from all directions while one of the 3 floors is electrified as some required strategy for this part. You can also let inmates die on these floors, because Batman didn't kill him, the floor did! I like this sequence, but it's not really what I consider to be a boss fight, because you take down Harley in the cutscene. In a boss fight, you're actively fighting the boss while not in a cutscene, and that's not what you do here, so it doesn't count. Batman makes his way to the botanical gardens, and we get this stealth segment where you gotta rescue some doctors from Joker's henchmen, but because all of them are wearing security collars, Batman has to take out the operator first, which is a lot easier than it sounds, thanks to the highly convenient architectural design of the place, and the henchman's incompetence, and you rescue the doctors, who later die anyway. Batman follows Harley's fingerprint trail into the Joker's Titan lab, where the Clown Prince injects Arnold serum into his henchman's veins. Once you do some damage to these Titans, you can get on their backs and make them slap each other around, which is just hilarious. After defeating the Titans, in order to cross the gap, Batman calls over the Batwing to get the line launcher while also causing property damage. When you think about it, Batman is more destructive than some of his enemies. Batman tracks down Ivy and orders her to help him make an antidote, but Ivy declines until Batman threatens every plant on the island. After Batman commits coercion, Ivy tells him good and bad news. The good news is that there's a plant on the island that can counter the effects of Titan. The bad news? It's in Killer Croc's lair.
Go back to your cell, or I'll be after you next.
Now I'm just gonna grow more man-eating plants while you're gone. Hello? Aren't you forgetting our little game? By the way, I know where you live. Fine! I'll play your stupid game. Just solve some riddles there, and some there. Actually, I'd love to continue with this game of yours, but for now, I need to finish this retrospective. A lot of Arkham Asylum reviews I've seen mention how Arkham Island itself is kind of its own character. At first, it's a bit run down, but not too unusual, but by the 3rd act, it's pretty much beyond saving. Now we get another stealth segment with these exploding gargoyles, so you gotta switch up your strategy here. And then we walk through a hallway.
Did anyone catch the game last night?
Well, what game? Can someone please send me a replay? Then the game does this fake out crash on you, and this reverse version of the intro cutscene plays where Joker is taking Batman to the madhouse, which is basically the asylum but it's run by the inmates.
I've waited a long time for this, lads. Let's start the party with a bang.
Well, apparently fear gas is so powerful that it has effects in the real world. This section is kind of like the bad future in Back to the Future 2, where everything's horrible and awful and bad. But don't worry, ghosts aren't real. If you want something better to eat than a rodent, there's a Subway around the corner. At the end of this Scarecrow section, you fight a bunch of skeletons, including a Titan skeleton, which will go down fairly easily. And when Batman awakes, we can see that those are real enemies he was fighting. Just a little detail I like. Now we need to chase down Scarecrow before he can flood the catacombs with fear gas. But of course, the villain needs to get into a big speech and defeat himself. Well, in my humble opinion, the Killer Croc section isn't as scary as the Scarecrow sections. It's still pretty solid. You never know when Croc will just dun 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 dun. In this maze, you're vulnerable whenever you're collecting spores for the antidote, so you want to be as sure as possible that you're safe from dun dun dun. Eventually, Croc will break some of the boards below you, so the line launcher's gonna be real handy here. Once we've got enough spores, we need to run from Croc like a chase level in Crash Bandicoot, where our greatest enemy is the camera, and then we trap him in a pit, because Batman breaks bones, not vital organs. In the next mission, we stop Joker's minions from poisoning Gotham's water supply. Something about this mission just feels kind of off. While the rest of the missions feel like they fit in the story, this one just feels like filler content, so I don't have a lot to say here. Then we go to the botanical gardens to confront Ivy, who is inside a plant as big as a skyscraper. She either tries to grab Batman with roots or shoot spore balls at him, and after every spore attack, for some reason she opens her protective shell to laugh, allowing you to throw a batarang at her. And in the second phase, she brings some brainwashed guards into the fight. I've heard some people call this fight the best in the game, but I'm gonna have to disagree. I mean, sure, it looks cool, but the fight itself is just tedious, repetitive, and overly long. At least there's a checkpoint between phases. Batman doesn't kill! After making it out of the little shop of horrors, Joker's party starts, and we find out that the dummy from earlier was actually Joker all along. Now we've made it to the last combat section, besides the final boss of course, where we fight crowds of criminals and 2 titans in a pretty challenging challenge, because challenges are supposed to be challenging. Once we beat them, we find out that somehow Joker has Gordon tied up. But didn't Gordon leave on a boat? Don't question it, just play the game. Just as Joker shoots a titan dart at Gordon, Batman jumps in the way as any smart hero would, and when he refuses to give into the transformation, Joker injects himself with the Titan formula and becomes a Titan, and Batman injects the antidote into himself. The duality of man. Now we move on to the final boss, and this fight just sucks. First off, this is incredibly out of character, even for the Joker. He's supposed to be crazy, but also intelligent, and you barely even fight him. For most of the fight, you beat up his henchmen and wait for Joker to turn his back, so you can pull him down and punch him. Then he chases you and tries to slash you with his Wolverine claws before he walks back up. The last combat section took me a few good tries to beat, but he won against Titan Joker first try. There are some behind-the-scenes sketches which imply that the finale was originally going to be different, but I guess we'll never know. It's not the worst boss I've ever fought, but it is very underwhelming for such an otherwise great game. There are some people who defend this fight, and while I can respect others' opinions, this fight just didn't do it for me. After Batman gives Joker some explosive gel to the face, the GCPD regains control over the asylum, and all the criminals are brought back into custody. And just as things seem to be going good,
Stay safe, Jim.
and Batman flies off in the Batwing. After the credits roll, we see a Titan crate in Gotham Bay, and a hand, either Bane, Killer Croc, or Scarecrow grabs it, hinting at their returns. So how well does Batman Arkham Asylum hold up today? I'd say today, the game is still fantastic, if not a little dated in some areas. But it's not over yet. Hello? You're not gonna solve my riddles because I have more brain cells than you. Expositor? You weren't supposed to find that. That's it! I'm gonna post your address on Instagram! Alright, I finished all your darn riddles. Now I know where you live. What? Impossible! I shipped the package right to your address, and I have a riddle for you. What's black, green, and dead all over? You. Oh, fuck! Hello everybody, thanks so much for watching this video. It was a lot of fun to make. I originally wasn't going to make this one this early in the series, but the stars and planets aligned perfectly and I just had to make it this early. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.